Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen, and I'm here today with one of our international authors that lives stateside. This is Jeannee Sacken, and she is the first author that I've ever had that I've picked for our International Book of the Month. I picked all three of her books. The first one is Behind the Lens, and she has a copy of it. Behind the Lens, show that. And then I have her other two. I'm so excited. Okay, so let me get this one up first. Double Exposure, and you can see the covers all go together, and then The Rule of Thirds. And this is the perfect time to be reading these books. We're going to be going on summer vacation. We're going to be traveling. These are all about that and more. This is her lifestyle, her career, her job. And I want you to tell everybody first a little bit about where you live, and then how did this all get started, Jeannee?
I am currently living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin,
All
which
right.
is a hidden gem in the United States. We have a really vibrant cultural life, fantastic theater, a premier symphony orchestra, fabulous dance companies, and the largest outdoor summer music festival in the world, right
Is
on
that
the
right?
lakefront of Lake Michigan. It's
Oh,
a terrific city. And but I have lived on both coasts and in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, as well as in the Loire Valley in France.
wow.
And I travel a lot to other countries. I started life as a English and French professor first at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, then for 2 years at North Carolina State in Raleigh. And then I moved up to Rochester, New York, where I ran the writing program at the National Technical Institute for the Deaf, which is one of the 7 colleges at Rochester Institute of Technology.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
back a few years, my father was um, in the hospital. He was about to die, and I went to see him for what turned out to be the last time, and he was semi-conscious, and he held my hand, and he said, "Don't die with regrets." And I'm thinking, regrets? I have no regrets. He said, "You have stories to tell. I
Oh,
always thought you would be a writer. Don't die with regrets." And then he died. And that's
oh,
a pretty powerful moment. I mean, it's always powerful when you're losing a parent or a sibling or someone you love. And but I was like, I'm running a writing program. I'm an academic. I'm doing what I love to do. Um, and but it started niggling at me. And
mm-hmm.
because I was at Rochester Institute of Technology, which is the home of the Eastman College of Photography,
Oh, yeah.
I started being mentored in photography by some of my colleagues. And a few years after my dad died, I thought I'm going on my first photo shoot to Zimbabwe. I had never been to Africa.
Oh,
So being type A, I got there a few days early. And one of the things that I did was meet with a Sangoma, who is a shaman. And he is a seer and a healer. And so he threw the bones for me. And he said, "Now concentrate on your problems." And I'm like, "I don't have any problems. I'm living the life I want to live. My identity is as an academic. I'm doing exactly what I want." So I hold the bones. There are 4 of them, and I held them, and I'm getting them warm and trying to concentrate. And I give them back to him. He throws them on the mat on the floor in between the two of us. And he looks and he says, "You did not concentrate. Do it again." So he gathers up the bones, puts them in my hands, and I'm like, I don't have any problems. Just because my father said I should not die with regret. So I started concentrating on that. And he throws the bones again. And I had told this man nothing about me, nothing. And he looks at the bones and he looks up at me and says, "You are an English teacher." And I'm thinking, now how could he guess that? That's a little weird. And he said, "But you have stories to tell.
Oh my
You
gosh.
have pictures to capture and tell stories with your pictures and your words." And this was a major Twilight Zone moment for me. And I
It's given me chills because this is exactly why I picked your books, because I thought, "Oh my gosh, this is such a storyteller. You have such a great voice." So, keep going.
so I got out of there pretty quickly. And I went home. I did the photo shoot, got some fabulous pictures, and I was actually at that point in time photographing women and children and their work. Because in the United States, of course, we have mandatory education, and a lot of other countries they do as well, but they can't afford the school uniforms and the
Right.
very small fees. And so they don't go to school. So
So
they
sad.
work
So
to
sad.
support these families who live in poverty. So I did my photo shoot. I went back to teaching and I continued thinking about this. And the next year, I went on another photo shoot, and it was to Honduras. And I was on a narrow gauge train with my fixer, the guy who translated for me and who helped me with all my arrangements. And we're going along on the mosquito coast. I was being eaten alive by mosquitoes. And we're going through this jungle. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this woman with a long pole and what looked to be a long, long sock. And she is pounding something. And I turn to Jorge and I say, "What is she doing?" And he says, "I have no idea. Do you want to find out?" So I said, "Yeah." So he taps the engineer on the shoulder. I thought they'd stop the train. We'd get off. We'd find out. We'd get back on the train. No, the engineer slowed the train and Jorge grabbed my hand. He said, "You've got your backpack with your camera gear, right?" We go flying off the train, jumping to the loam, the dirt, and I stand and watch the train leave.
Oh my oh my gosh. You're so brave.
And I said, "When's the next train, Jorge?" He said, "Today's Thursday, next Tuesday. Is that a problem?"
Are
So
you kidding me?
we walk into the jungle, and this woman was making cassava flour from cassava root, and that was what she was pounding.
Oh, yeah.
And so she said, "Oh, come to my village." So we go deeper into the jungle and
Okay, I
go
don't wanna
to
go
her
with you.
village,
That's it.
and there is this pretty open kitchen where her sister is cooking cassava tortillas over an open fire. And I said, "Can I photograph you all?" And it had to be 120 degrees. I mean, it's a jungle.
Yeah.
It's humid. It's hot. And I had two cameras. And as soon as um, I would run a roll of film and I'd hand it to him, he'd change the film, he'd wipe down the lenses because I was dripping sweat. And all of a sudden, I realized we're surrounded by everyone in the village, and they're all chanting, "National Geographic, National Geographic."
Oh, that's
So
great.
I finished taking the roll after roll of film. We hike out on the train tracks, and I come home. And I couldn't get rid of that physical sensation of flying through the air off the train and just soaring. And I said, how many more signs do I need? My father, the Sangoma, flying off the train. So I resigned my tenure.
Wow, you took a leap of faith,
I
ma'am.
did. I did. And so then I started really focusing on my photography. But what I loved about the photographs and showing them at galleries was being able to compile catalogs that told the stories of each of these women and children. And so we would have catalogs, or we would have the stories posted next to the images. And of course, as people bought the images, they would also take the story and put it on the back of the image. So my ladies and children are all over the world with their stories. And but I loved the writing part of it, as well as the capturing the image. And so I started writing short stories. I am not a short story writer, I discovered. I just have too much to say about these stories. And so it took a while to realize that. And I moved up to novellas. Nobody was buying novellas. So I moved up to novels. And I wrote my first novel
Yes. Yes.
was um, set in Mexico. And it starred a character named Annie Hawkins Green, who was a lawyer for the United Nations, and she was down there with a group from the UNHCR investigating the maquiladoros and all the young women who were dying in Ciudad Juarez. And I thought it was a great book. Everybody, my writing group, everybody loved it. And then one of my beta readers said, Jeannee, it's just not hanging together. It's just not working. So I read it again and she was right. And so it went onto the shelf right there. And I went on and did other things. And I came back to it a few years later because I couldn't stop thinking about Annie Hawkins.
Yeah, she's a great character.
And so I said, okay, that book didn't work. What can I do with Annie Hawkins? And Annie said, I'm a photographer, in case you hadn't noticed.
Okay.
So I made her into a photojournalist, and she said, I'm a war photographer. So I had to find a war. And I wanted a war where there was a coalition force presence. I wanted US Navy SEALs there. And I had done a lot of reading about Afghanistan,
Yeah.
especially after 9/11. And
Yes.
the Afghan people that I know and the reading that I've done, warm, hospitable, wonderful people. And I wanted to show a different side. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so that's how it all came together. And the first book, when I was finishing it, I said, this story isn't done. And so I wrote Double Exposure, and then I wrote the third book, The Rule of Thirds. And actually, the interesting story about the Rule of Thirds,
Mhm. Which is the new one that's just out. Yeah.
yeah. Um, well, in brief, behind the lens, um, Annie is on assignment in Afghanistan in 2005. She takes a picture and bad things happen to the young girl she takes a picture of, and she blames herself. So seeking atonement, she returns to Afghanistan to teach a photography workshop at the School for Girls run by her college roommate and best friend, Daria. And bad things happen.
Yeah.
And then in the second book, Double Exposure, Annie's
Mhm.
teenage daughter shows that she's got really great fundraising chops. And so she and her friends raise a whole lot of money for Annie to take over to Afghanistan to help rebuild the school for girls, and bad things happen.
Yeah, it's
With the
amazing.
third final book, I wrote a book, and it was a really good story. And then August 15th, 2021 happened, when the Taliban drove across Afghanistan and entered Kabul and took over the country. And I sat there watching this happen and said, this book is so tone deaf, I can't publish it. And so I literally saved chapter 1 and hit delete for the rest of the book, and then rewrote the book. And in that book, Annie returns to Afghanistan, probably for the last time, to cover the story of the Taliban takeover and to try to help some of the feminists who've been working with coalition forces or with the media escape.
Now, were you at our convention this year?
Yes, I was.
Did you meet Debbie Rodriguez?
I have read all of her books. I did not, I
You
mean, I
2
was in
need
the
to be
audience.
you need to be I need to I'll introduce you. We'll introduce each other because Debbie, I met her when I first opened my shop. We had the same agent, and Marley Rusoff said, "You've got to read this, the Cabell Beauty School." And I absolutely knew nothing about Afghanistan. And so I read the story, but I've had Debbie here like 4 times, speaking. What is amazing is, she barely got out of there, her and her son, this one time. And people do not realize that as violent as our world has become and everything, we still do not understand what is happening with these tangents. But it's not the whole country.
Right.
People just think if they see a turban, all these Punjabi Indians, I feel so sorry for them. They wear these turbans. They see a turban, they see people that they got their cover. They just automatically panic. That something's going to happen, and I hope the more that we read as we continue with, for everybody that's listening, this is the last year of the Pulpwood Queens International Book Club. We are starting a whole new regime. This was our 24th year, and we truly are going to go international with our reads. And we also are going to work really hard by sharing our author's stories so we can build bridges to understanding. I don't think until you go someplace like you went and met with the shaman and stuff, do you really. I've never been to Africa. I've always dreamed of going there. Right now, I've been invited to go to India. I'm going. Do not miss a trip, people. If somebody invites you to go somewhere, go, because when you come back home, you have a whole new lens.
You do.
Like, you have a whole new lens. And let's talk about that a little bit. You being a photographer and a photojournalist and everything. What is the difference in going somewhere and then reading about it to you? I mean, just tell it like it is, because I tell people, if you think this country's in trouble, you need to get out and go. It's not. The people of America are wonderful. I made a wild trip all the way up to Connecticut to deliver a painting with Tawana, my trusty sidekick, before she passed away. And we had the best experiences of our life. And there was so much going on with all the politics of presidency and agendas. And I was really a little frightened. And I got out there, and the only scary thing I had happen is in New Jersey. I went to pump my gas, and this man came running at me screaming, "No, no." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "You can't pump your gas. It's illegal." I go, "What?" And he looked at me, he goes, "You mean you have to pump my gas?" And I said, "Let me get a picture, because you are the man of my dreams." That man laughed so hard. We took all these photos at this gas station, but I never knew. I
In
mean,
New
nobody.
Jersey. Yep.
I think New Jersey, New Hampshire, and I said, "Well, I'm coming back to your state." He just was shaking his head when he left because "No, never had that happen before." But that's what you do when you get out and you talk to people. You laugh and you share stories, and you also meet people like this man was put in your path for a definite reason.
Oh, yeah.
Are you one? Are I believe that people like you, your books, all these books that are put in front of me to read, I know they're for a reason. So I look at every single one that's sent to me, and I'm encouraging everybody to send me your books. I'm not getting any this year, not anything like I normally get. So I'm really worried. I not only are book club members not on Zoom, authors aren't joining and sending me books, and they need to because I just finished one that is set in India that's just fantastic. So, um, send me your books, everybody. It's on the website, pulpwoodqueens.com. But what else could you tell us about? Can you think of a particular story that that you had happen besides the shaman story that just really made you realize this is the life for me? Besides flying off that plane or train?
You know, I have so many stories, but I was on a photo shoot in Botswana. I was sort of transitioning into becoming a wildlife photographer as I
Right.
still work on my ongoing documentary essay, but I do wildlife photography as well now. And it was 2007, and we were in the Kalahari Desert, and I was there to photograph black-maned lions. And we are, um, I'm photographing them, and I am so cold that I am asking for the blankets that are in the Jeep and people's jackets. And someone finally said to me, Jeannee, it's 110 degrees. And I was like, it can't be. It is so cold. It's so cold. And they said, you're looking kind of green. So we go back to camp, and someone took my temperature, and they wouldn't tell me it was over 105.
Oh my gosh, you should have been having hallucinations.
Well, yeah, I was pretty close to hallucinating and going unconscious. So they called in a medevac helicopter, which ironically, given what happened a few years later, was being piloted by a crew that had just come out of Afghanistan. They were part of the coalition forces.
Oh
And
my
so they
god.
loaded me up and flew me up to Maun, which is this frontier town, to the Kalahari and to the Okavango Delta. And they took me to a private hospital. And this skin color is the reason I survived, because I had the ability to go into a private hospital and to buy the antibiotics that saved my life.
Are
I
you
had a
kidding me?
combination of Shigella and Salmonella, and all of my veins collapsed. I lost 30 something pounds within a few days because just all liquid went out of my body. And um, I, you get a whole different perspective when you are hospitalized in another country, and people are, I mean, I, they treated me so, so beautifully. And everybody always says, would you go back? And Kathy, I think we have frozen.
Still there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you see me?
If that happens again, It just went out for a second, I just kept talking, so just yeah, it's recording, so, anyway,
Okay.
we left off where you went to the hospital, you got the antibiotics, it was because of your skin, and if you're saying then that if you'd been of color, they wouldn't have
Right.
treated you, no matter how
Right.
much money you had?
Well, I had trip insurance.
Ah,
It just, and let me tell you, I am the poster child for medevac insurance because, um, they will not put a helicopter up for under $50,000. And I didn't pay this, it was trip insurance. And, so
I hope
anyway,
you've only had to use it once.
only once, but, the people were so incredibly kind, and you get a totally different perspective when it's a life and death issue, and it truly was in my case. My husband was there, and he did not my husband did not want them to give me the chloramphenicol, which is what they were gonna give me, because it, destroys your bone marrow. And my husband said, I will medevac her on to Johannesburg. South Africa has a world-class medical system. And the doctor said she's not going to make it. And it was at that moment that I lost consciousness. And
How did he know not to have that? Is he a
my
doctor?
husband's a physician. Yeah.
Oh, so what
And
did he do? He said, "Well, you gotta give it to her."
yeah, they weighed the pros and the cons, and they said, "Well, she's not gonna survive without it," and it did destroy my bone marrow, and it took a number of years for it to restabilize,
Oh,
but,
wow.
people always say to me, "Oh, well, how could you possibly go back there?"
Oh,
Because I love it. The people are so wonderful, and in fact, I go to Zimbabwe a lot, and, one time when I was there, my driver was picking me up at the airport, and I was telling him how much I loved it, and, I mean, when you go in the dry season, it's all red dust, and you can just see it floating in the air, and I just said, "I even love the dust, I've missed the dust so much," and my driver was just he hugged me, and he was like, "You can't leave. Anyone who loves the dust has to stay."
isn't
But,
that that's
you
just
know
amazing.
It is if you really want to come close or even begin to understand people who don't live in the United States or even people who live in other parts of the United States and
Right.
their culture and their beliefs, you have to go to that place and interact with those people. There is no other way. And you can't just assume that everyone's going to have the same worldview, the same opinions, but you have to be willing to listen to what they have to say and interact with them and engage with them. And that's that's my life. That's what I love to do.
Oh, your life is wonderful, and, if life was easy and we just flew all we wouldn't learn anything. It's
Right.
through these mishaps and misfortunes and mistakes and discoveries that we grow.
Yes.
And I feel like the past 10 years has been a relatively big growth leap for me because I had to start completely over. And here now I'll be starting my second year of graduate school. I can't even believe it. I never even dreamed a little Kansas kid like me could ever even graduate from college, let alone go on to get their master's. So, it's it, I've learned 2 major things that'll be in my next book. First of all, is you never quit.
Mhm.
You can never truly fail if you never quit.
Right.
Things do change, and people always quit before, the change comes. You have to have patience, you have to don't ever quit. Finish what you start. You don't have to start back up again when you finish that, but finish everything you start. And the next thing is when I was watching this Mahabharat, which is a 28 season television show based upon the Indian, mythology and religion. It is their religion. Um, I learned that about Lord Krishna, which is fascinating to me. I love mythology. I always have loved every country's. But he said, listening is God. And I talk too much. So I mm, I need to learn this right now. I am trying very hard to be a better listener. So I want to listen to your more stories and where you're going with this. Tell us more, Jeannee.
Well, where I'm going is I've written a new book.
What? Oh, yay.
Um, it's called The Women Who Stand Between, and it is about a female cinematographer who is making a wildlife documentary in Zimbabwe.
Okay. Sounds like you've had some experience. Okay.
Yes, well, a few years ago, I was involved in something called the Great Elephant Migration from
Mhm.
Botswana down through Zimbabwe. And so I have her, there's a little bit of overlap between my life and some of my books. I have my main character on that Great Elephant Migration, and she's
That's
filming
why
it.
you like my elephant back here.
I love elephants.
I do too. I have them all over my house. I
Let me
love
tell
animals.
you, when I was on the Great Elephant Migration and it was 35,000 elephants and me, it was phenomenal. It was life-changing. I absolutely loved it. At one point, I was in a hide that was three-quarters buried in the Kalahari Desert, overlooking by well, the first of the boreholes was maybe 5 feet away from me. And then other boreholes down to a pond that was maybe 30 feet away. And I was photographing elephants' feet because I was that close to them. And there were thousands of elephants just milling
I
around.
can't I think the most I've seen together at one time is maybe 5 or so, at a zoo or something, but how many were there?
Thousands, thousands.
That would be a life-changing moment.
It
That would
is. So many of these moments I have out on photo shoots, that's what they are. I mean, to be able to I have spent days upon days with, a leopard mother and her daughter,
Oh,
or with a family of lions, and just sitting there, and they get so used to you that, "Oh, of course, it's her again." And Um, it's life-changing, it really is. So my cinematographer is on the Great Elephant Migration, um, working for a very famous company and making a wildlife documentary. And through a series of mishaps, there is a plane crash of the small Cessna that they're doing aerial work in, and she gets blamed for this very unfairly. She had nothing to do with it, but she's blacklisted from Hollywood. And the only way she can earn a living is by teaching cinematography at a Midwestern university that happens to be in Milwaukee. Fast forward 4 years, she's told if you want to get tenure, you have to make a film. Therein lies her catch 22 because she can't make film, which is why she's teaching. But she gets together a few of her most loyal friends. They go back to Zimbabwe and they make a short documentary of the mambas, not the snake,
oh gosh, you scared me for me because that's the one thing I couldn't do.
but um,
Mom.
it's an all-female, very fierce anti-poaching unit of women who have come together, escaping domestic abuse and violence. They work together, they stand between the poachers and the animals who are so endangered. And so that's
Oh, is it done? Is the book done?
it's done, it's being shopped. right now. It's
Man, I
out.
wanna read it, I wanna read it, make sure I get a copy of it, and I don't care if it's
Absolutely.
uncorrected manuscript, I wanna read it. Um, I I that's fascinating because, I watch all the documentaries that are up for Academy Awards and everything. There was one about an elephant, a young man who took care of oh, it was a short documentary, it was
Mhm.
really good, really good. Um, I watch all the documentaries. They're fascinating to me, and I think I've seen every film ever made about I grew up on Tarzan, which I know that's all this, you know in fact, we were just talking about it in our Cold War class about how one of the television shows had Tarzan fighting the Nazis. It's I mean, even the Cold War came into the but I just like the fact that he lived in the jungle and he got to swing through trees. That was my big thing. I didn't really look at the, appropriation and the how he but he loved the animals, so um anyway, I think that sounds like a film. I mean, they should do a documentary and a film on your book and the story. That would I've never heard of the Mambas. I don't think I've heard of the Mambas. Has it been covered in National Geographic? Because I'm a subscriber.
I
Um,
don't think it has.
I don't think
Um,
so either. Pitch them.
However, there's a male group also called the Cobras. And
What?
yeah, the Mambas are
You
the
have
women, the
got
Cobras.
to do a story about that. I just watched a documentary about one of the kings of one of the African countries. What was it? They've got a whole thing on Netflix where you can watch documentaries of different countries, and this one was she was the queen, but she was the ruler of this country. It was by default, but she was doing amazing things. I forgot what country it was. I watched so many. But yeah, that would be so fascinating to watch and see, and maybe we can make it happen. That would be great. Have you got a title?
The Women Who Stand Between.
The Women Who Stand Between.
The title of the documentary is the same as the title of the book.
Very good. Are you gonna get the Mamba in there in the subtitle, or just trying to think of it.
I don't I thought of titling it The Mambas, but then I think people would think the snake.
That's the first thing I thought, "Oh my god, and don't tell me you're doing a deal of snakes." So,
No,
that would be
I'm not a big fan of snakes, and I had an encounter with a black mamba. Um,
No!
yeah,
They're deadly.
I
What happened?
know. I was eating lunch, sitting under a tree, and my fixer said, "Come this way now." And I said, "What?" He said, "Just come this way."
Just
And I
gonna say
turn
no.
around, and there's the black mamba. And the way that they're very aggressive, and the way that they strike is they raise up till they're
And
about 8 feet tall, and then they lunge forward. And stupid me, I'm like, well, I should take a photograph of this as a way of overcoming my fear of snakes. And my fixer is dragging me away, and I take the picture of the mamba, which is up on my Facebook site. So um, I didn't want to call it the mambas because I didn't want potential readers thinking it was about snakes. So I don't think it'll be part of the subtitle either. Um, anyway, that's what I am up to right now. And it's off on submission. And I hope to be hearing some good news sometime really soon. Other things that I am up to, I am booking another trip back to Zimbabwe. I work with several schools in Zimbabwe, helping to pay the fees for a number of children to be able to attend school. And so I'd like to go and catch up with them. And I'm also hoping to do a photo shoot of big cats because I find cats as incredibly interesting as elephants. I just love spending lots and lots of time with them and studying all of their family interdynamics. And so that's what I'm hoping to do. And then after that, I am putting together a trip to central India because I have long wanted to photograph tigers. So that brings you up to date on my upcoming photo shoots. And I am actually starting a new novel. Thank you for asking. And it is about, it's sort of historical. It's about the desaparecidos in Argentina's dirty war. And I had originally written it as a novella about 20 years ago. And the protagonist was a young graduate student. But now that we're further along and I'd like to set it in the present moment, I think it is going to be a woman in middle age who makes some discoveries about herself and her connection to the dirty war. So, Kathy, are you there? I think I am talked out and hope you can edit this. At any rate, if people would like to get in touch with me, I am on Facebook, Jeannee Sacken. I am also on Instagram at author Jeannee Sacken. And I have a website, sorry, which is JeanneeSacken.com. And on my website, I really bring together my photography and my books. There are galleries of different images on the website. And if you want to read these books, I love to hear from people. Love to hear what you think. And I also absolutely adore book clubs. It's my favorite thing to do.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell everybody, if you're just turning in the first time, this is the first time I've ever put 3 books in one pick for the international selections. And I picked 2 before because I missed the first one and then I found out about the second one. But we finally got you here, and I'm so looking forward to reading this next book by you. I mean, it sounds like you're on a roll. And I know you're much younger than me. So keep in mind that you, at some point, you're going to have to write a memoir because these stories are just unbelievably, but, yeah, you definitely need to pitch that to National Geographic. That would be, I have a friend that has done a documentary with them, and he's working on a book himself. So, but I've subscribed to that magazine off and on for years, and, I don't think I've ever heard anything about the Mambas or the Cobras. So, and that is in what country that this group of people are?
Well, there are mambas and cobras in Zimbabwe and South Africa. Those are the 2 main countries, and they may be starting up in Malawi and Zambia as well. They're doing such incredibly important work. Some of the units of the Mambas are not armed, and they go up against these poachers who are armed with automatic weapons. And these women are incredibly fierce. They are incredibly brave, and they really are what the force that is standing between um, people who want to kill all of these animals and these animals who are incredibly endangered.
I'm so sorry we're having so much trouble here. Got it.
It
Are you there?
I am still here. I was
Well,
just
what we're
about
gonna
to.
do is wrap it up because it says we're having low wattage or voltage or whatever. I'm telling everybody, if you have any questions, where do you go to talk to you about them, Jeannee?
Um, Please, you can message me at Facebook
Yep.
or at Instagram, or if you go to my website, jeanneesacken.com, there is a place where you can connect to me and it will come right through to my email.
Fantastic. And I have recorded this. I'm going to download it and we're going to put it up on the Kathy L. Murphy Big Book Love channel on YouTube. Please subscribe. We're trying to get 1,000 new subscribers before we kick off our grand reopening on January 1st, 2025. 25 years of reading all together these books around the world. So run to your nearest bookstore and get these wonderful books. And any last comments, Janae, you would like to make to people?
Um, Actually, I'd like to make it to you. I
Oh,
am so appreciative of what it is that you have done for me and for writers and for readers. I don't know that people fully appreciate how much of your life, your time, your effort you put into this, in addition to everything else that you're doing. And it's long been a dream of mine to be able to be here with you. And you really do make dreams come true. So thank you.
oh, well, I was a Disney kid. I was always wishing upon a star. What I have to tell you is anytime you have any other big news, when we want to do that big new book launch, you call me and we will schedule another Zoom. If you have any big trips coming up, if you want to do a travel Um, you know how I was one of those kids that always went to the neighborhood where the people in their RVs would go on trips and take pictures and then have slideshows and nobody ever wanted to go. I was the kid on the front row because I want so if you ever want to do, I would love to see footage or pictures or something from that elephant. I mean, 1,000 elephants. Oh my gosh. That would be amazing. Anything you wanna show, any of your trips, all the places you've gone. Now, have you've been to Afghanistan, correct?
I have not been to
Well,
Afghanistan.
that's why I've gotta connect you with Debbie because Debbie has now her beauty school in Kabul got shut down, and she had to
Right.
escape with her life. She now has opened a beauty school in Pakistan, and she's invited me to go there. Wouldn't it be cool if
Oh,
we could all go?
wouldn't that be incredible?
She's the best hairdresser in the world too. I mean, I've never and she's from up north. She's from I think she's from originally from Michigan, but she lives in
Oh,
Mexico now. And she keeps saying, "You've got to come down. You've got to go with me to Pakistan." And I'm going, I got to figure out what I'm going to do to fund it. I'm not one of these kind of people that ever do a GoFundMe, but I want to earn my own way. So if you really want to do something, buy a painting, buy a painting. Or I will paint you or do a book cover. I like to earn my own way. So anyway, and buy our books because that really helps support us and keeps us happy. And all you have to do is a share. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and share with everybody you know. And
right.
thank you, Jeannee. Anytime you call me, I mean, I will work it in. And when I heard from you, I said, let's do it, and we got it done. So you just take good health care. And I have the feeling down the road we might be doing something. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes,
Wouldn't it be
absolutely.
fun if we could go and we could do a writer's workshop for those
Oh,
women?
oh, yes.
And you could photograph those women learning how. See, when you learn how to become a hairdresser in a Muslim country, it gives you value. And it also and you're treated better. So that's why Debbie did it. And it's also a safe place to go. Men don't come into
Right.
there. So they had a safe place. So, she works with Beauty Beyond Borders. And but if I can ever figure out a way to fund a way, I'll think if your daughter's good at fundraising, maybe we can figure out something we could do. But wouldn't that be amazing? I'm gonna email Debbie tonight and give her your email and say you two have got to talk. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
you're
And
welcome.
thank you for tonight.
Oh my gosh, it's been my pleasure. It was the best entertainment I've had all semester. So thank you so much. And everybody watch the whole thing and share it, have watch parties. It's going to be fun. I'll get it up in a few after it gets downloaded. And thank you, Jeannee. And you did say, that your family is French. Is that correct? You lived in France for a while and your
I
name is
did live in
French?
France. Yeah, I lived in France for a while, but my
And
family
how
is American.
and how fluent are you in French?
Well, I used to teach it at the university level,
Oh,
and
that's
I lived
right.
there,
Well,
so
I
pretty
could have
fluent.
been you. I could use your help because right now I've been struggling on all these tenses, some of them that we don't even have. But we're doing French 3 and 4 in one semester, so it's
Oh,
6 hours of French this semester, 6 hours of French last semester, and it's just keeping up with the vocabulary and the it's mind-boggling, but I know if I go over there, I can, find my way around, know where the bathroom is, learn how to buy groceries, get a taxi, whatever. I can Uber, whatever. I know how to do it now, but until you go and immerse yourself in a language, you always are self-conscious. In class, we're all that way, so we all talk, but we get out, we're like, "Well, bonsoir. I'm out of here." But maybe eventually we'll have a conversation. How's that?
ça va
Okay.
bien?
Okay. Au revoir, Jeanette. And we'll see you all on the Kathy L. Murphy Big Book A Love channel on YouTube. So have a wonderful night. It's all about all three of these stories. Okay. Read them. Bye bye. Bye
Bye,
bye.
thank you.
Thank you.